The Mandalorian came out, and it's apparently good. You'd expect that because everyone loves Boba Fett, because he's the coolest guy in space. I don't know why exactly. He was a chump in the original trilogy, and so barely made the cool needle jump there. And then he was in the prequels as a kid, so the cool needle then quit. Harangued a stock trader and convinced him it could solve a Rubik's Cube to get an internship and create a new life for itself and its child, Prick. It looks good, though, if culturally irrelevant. It looks slick. It looks like they get the message of what other people see in, I presume, Boba Fett across. I don't know why you would make a Mandalorian series that wasn't about Boba Fett, but I mean, I guess there are probably other cool Mandalorians. Like, the whole thing with the Mandalorians is being as cool as Boba Fett, and I guess collecting bounties. You know, it looks slick, it looks good to what you expect. If anything, it may actually create a character that's more nuanced and complicated, as it promises in its little trailer that bounty hunting is complicated, which is as close as you can get to putting in your ad material. This is a complex and mature story. Regardless, like, if it is actually that complex, it may actually turn people off who expect something simple and awesome and, you know, a less tongue-in-cheek version of the Boba Fett from Robot Chicken. And that's all par for the course, I think. If it's good, like, these streaming services warehouse their own shit, and then they make something that's actually good, so they can, one, use it in the launch to get people to buy in, and then two, make people with actual tastes, such as myself, chew our own phones in rage, because we then can't deny that they are able to make good fucking content when they want to, and everything they choose to make instead is just a massive slush pile of contempt shot from them to the consuming public. It is infuriating to see what could be substantive art and discussions of social paradigms and things being made that could be building our culture instead of slicing it off to sell that slice one more fucking Ryan Gosling vehicle. What I'd like to see is actual competition. And I don't mean idiots in suits bidding for the streaming rights to Suits. I mean real competition. You got that shit? Well, I'm gonna copy you. I want to see Disney Plus make a sad horse show about actual Disney character Horace Horsecollar fighting bipolar depression and not having been popular since before the depression. I want to see Netflix make a wild grab at the Game of Thrones audience in a miniseries produced by Adam fucking Sandler. Not regular Adam Sandler, the Adam Sandler from the pocket dimension where Adam Sandler gives a shit and makes good shit. I mean, it'll star Adam Sandler as Jean Neige, who's super sad about being a medieval Jewish monarch, but it would be good, and I want to see Netflix humiliate themselves by making it. I want to see CBS All Access make a family-friendly version of Ash vs. Evil Dead starring actual Senator Mitt Romney, because why the hell not? I do not expect to be entertained on their race to the bottom with green scene CGI disaster flicks and whatever filmed on location post-apocalyptic bullshit series starring a Marvel movie alum they're just gonna make. What? Yeah, yes, Jason Momoa counts. You don't have to say and imitators when you say Marvel movies. It's implied. Marvel movies and imitators. Same thing. It's called C on Apple TV. Jeez. At least they're heartily ripping off Bird Box. I mean, I'll fucking take it. But the real draw of streaming services is nostalgia. And there's nothing wrong with nostalgia. No one eschews the biblical directive to put childish things away more than I do. And it's not because that passage is actually a metaphor for learning to love and not acting your age, but I'm definitely not an act your age guy. I mean, fuck people your age, grow up, show maturity, be an individual who takes care of you, or contribute to a community that does the same. Don't Refuse to enjoy yourself because of your self-image as an adult. Enjoy things with the depth and moderation adulthood permits, and occasionally enjoy things shallowly or to excess. All that is required of you in return is that you understand others who do the same. So I am not here telling folks who enjoy nostalgia that they should get their finances in line for the day they apply for an apartment back in the womb. My point is that when Disney Plus sells you on nostalgia, they are not selling you a good product. Nostalgia is remembering something you experienced before, not something that you can experience again. The reason you feel so strongly about the cultural fixtures of your youth is because they were emblematic of your youth, both your physical youth and the time you were young. To paraphrase Slavoj Zizek, you don't love DuckTales, you love your childhood. And you can't buy your childhood back. You can't reciprocate the care that was given to you as a child by an intellectual property. And you can't binge all 222 episodes of Phineas and Ferb, honestly. Look, YouTube sucks. YouTube videos are short and facile and full of lies that you want to hear. But the best way to indulge your nostalgia for things past is YouTube videos. Videos titled something like Top 10 Times Mickey Mouse Was a Dick, or 7 Times Kim Possible Literally Did the Kimpossible. Those things are a far better way to indulge the good feelings of times past than a $7 a month subscription service. You know, my jam was Darkwing Duck because Batman was only on once a week. I wasn't kidding about that bootleg ripoff stuff from earlier. I'll take Disney does Batman the animated series, but the only changes are the nuances removed and Launchpad McQuack is there for some reason. And yeah, for those of you puffing up your chests, also, Batman was competent. Even as a kid, it was frustrating to watch another show where the main character was almost too stupid to fill their stated role, and only some kid could actually get stuff done. That's also the reason I spent my entire childhood thinking that there was this mythical era of Inspector Gadget where Inspector Gadget was actually cool and good, and that I had just barely missed that era in the episode where we see the traumatic brain injury that caused that fucking sea change. I mean, even kids can get nostalgic, I guess. But I kind of like Darkwing Duck. The gas gun, the hat, the double-breasted suit, catchphrase that had him introduce himself as a terror, only to undercut that with the word flap. That was high comedy, years before David Willis's insight that Batman's serious demeanor was comedy gold. My favorite, I think for obvious reasons, is the one where Darkwing Duck goes to the future, where his daughter died doing some meddling kid stuff, and he goes full Flashpoint/Kingdom Come and becomes a tyrannical dictator who had crushed all crime in, God, whatever city was it that he worked? Probably a pun on Gotham or Empire City or another duck thing. Oh, Saint Canard. Yeah, that duck in French. It showed that our protagonist could actually do things if he put his mind to it. And that if he was competent, he was actually kind of scary. And that his kid Goslin was actually lucky she wasn't dead by now. So I mean, yeah, edgy grimdarkness. But it also established some kind of possibility, however unrealized, that our hero could do something right. And that his junior high growing spawn could possibly do something wrong. It established stakes instead of continuing on a frustrating treadmill. But I'm not going to watch it again. And if you think of yourself as a Darkwing Duck fan, I gotta ask, did you read the Darkwing Duck comic book series they released in 2010? The one in 2016? The one in 2018? Did you even know about them? I am just saying that if these stories and characters are in any way timeless or relevant, then you would have checked them out in the other media they've been in. But maybe if you just like cartoons from when you were a kid, that's nostalgia. Simple nostalgia, and that is okay. My only directive on this is that you deserve to be honest with yourself about what it is you're getting from this and what it's worth to you. You know, I have seen folks online bitching about the cost of streaming services. They total up the cost of every single streaming service, and it's like $90 a month, and they're like, what are we saving by cutting the cord? I've worked a lot of places in my day. One of those places was a little fabric store, and I did counter work there, and we sold coats there for like $1 each. Now, I live in the South, always have. If you don't know, it's hot down here. It gets hot. People sometimes pay $1 for a 12-ounce Coke. While I'm talking about the South, Coke is what we call soda for the rest of you, unless you're one of those Wisconsinite pod people who calls it pop, and then you can get fucked. Some people will pay $1 for a Coke straight from a refrigerator on a hot day. Most people don't. But some people will treat any stated price on an item as a personal exhortation to them to buy that item at that price. I had to deal with those people. People who are like, oh, I wouldn't pay $1 for a Coke. I'm like, well, fucking don't then. You know the types, though. When commercials ask a question, they answer. When a character in a movie they've seen before says, we should do this, they're the ones who hear the same ominous background music as everyone else, but they're the only ones who say aloud, no, you shouldn't. They're the people who think posts on the internet are addressed to them personally by an actual human. And whatever those people call Cokes, we call those people the absolute worst. It's the supersize me logic, right? It paints as dastardly villains everyone who says, hey, would you like to try this? Because it intentionally misconstrues the reasonable marketing goal of informing individuals of options with the very shitty marketing act of exploiting people and preying on the vulnerable. I don't know. I just don't see creating a streaming platform that has things on it and you pay for access as something that's on the highlight reel when Darth Vader's life flashes before his eyes at the end of Jedi. Fuck, man, I just don't buy it. I'm not here to justify the rates charged by any huge multi-billion-dollar corporation because they can do that themselves and they can pay people to do that and they could pay me to do that. And you can bootleg anything you want to watch that's on stream, or if you want to get real kinky, just not watch it. Look, healthcare costs being insane and making healthcare inaccessible is a problem. That's an example of how the cost of an offered service actually locks out folks who need it. Food deserts are a problem for low-income areas that don't have accessible grocery stores. Hey, internet access should be free, but the cost of subscribing to all streaming platforms simultaneously is excessive is an argument straight from the igneous rock straits of stupid motherfuckers with sad parents. Just don't fucking sub to them all, dumbass. And to argue in slightly better faith, the expectation that getting rid of cable and being able to access entertainment a la carte was a heady one. It was optimistic, and now we're swimming in a reality where access to all of these things on demand for a monthly subscription fee to several entities is being compared to having access to some of those things on someone else's schedule for a larger fee to one big entity. I just don't know where some promise got broken or by who. Actually, I know it's on CBS All Access and Hulu where folks pay for membership but still get commercials. That's a friggin' rip. The notion that there's some population of dull-eyed slugs who unthinkingly sign up for each streaming service as it comes out and are also put in economic peril by paying $90 a month for it, who are also somehow victims, is a weird notion. Sure, you want to be signed up to all of them if you're a pop culture critic, or if you need to blithely watch every show that floats to the surface of the cultural cesspool. But given that common cultural bonds these days are as blasted as the French border in 1915, and the notion that everyone is watching any one thing is a sham based on a decades-late notion of monocultural winners and kept alive by companies vying to frame their latest show as that winner. You know, kind of like the Iron Throne in Game of Thrones. What do you mean you don't watch Game of Thrones? It's so good. You gotta watch it. I'm just fucking with you. Fuck off. The discussion of what you should be watching is interesting. I've seen commercials and SNL skits that take the person who isn't caught up with the shows and frame them as equal parts someone you can sympathize with and someone whose grave in the cultural gutter is awaiting their body to catch up with their social death. Meanwhile, all of the beautiful, better people are up on the latest empire twists and turns. There's a social message there that you should be caught up on these shows. And if you aren't, then you're just not with the cool crowd and you won't be able to socially relate. And look at all of these people who manage their time so they can spend so much of their time watching Downton Abbey? But that's bunk. Sure, companies are really competing for streams and network viewers and trying to elbow out stupid videos on the internet and whatever a guy named Ninja is doing. And for some reason, television is really good now. But no matter what merit there is to the idea that television shows are worth watching, there's no truth to the message that everyone else is watching all of it. It's like diet magazines that tell women and girls that there are hundreds of details of their personal appearances that need to be fixed. It's the same message, and it's the same gamed motivation, and it's the same mythical goal bullshit. Yeah, you could be watching more television and have more tools to socially interface with other people, and yes, you could always do one more thing to be a little more attractive, but no one does that. You are uniquely aware of your shortcomings, but only aware of some of other people's shortcomings. Only insane people try to eliminate all of their flaws. Insane, idly rich people who have no personality but trying to conform to those messages because there is nothing else inside of those people. Poor people try it too, but compulsively spending unreasonable amounts on beauty treatments and streaming services is what we call mental illness in people who can't afford it. I'll talk about Rick and Morty more next week, but Morty's adventure with the death crystals is exactly about that. Trying to meet the expectations set by implicit social messages, which is like Morty's whole thing. It's self-denying, no matter how much of the end result is something you personally may want. It makes you a drone, sensitive to feedback, artificial, and ultimately a vessel for a poorly explained planet-destroying creature of black ichor. Social messages are so real, they're just shy of tangible, but they are lies. But they will never, ever care about you or truly satisfy you. They are disease vectors for marketing and politics and ideas that don't want you. Not for you, the worthwhile individual. They're parasites who only view you as a gestation medium for their eggs so they can replicate and dominate and win. You thought I was doing japes with that creature of black ichor shit, didn't you? You didn't think it was literal. Political, social, and economic participation is intrinsic to humanity and is not just a duty but a right, etc., etc. But the amoral strategies of those forces will proliferate as long as people believe in those lives and give them purchase. They're designed to get inside of you without you noticing, so we have to consciously fight them. Understand what those strategies look like. See what's being implicitly said when a joke or story centers around who's included and who's not. Know what's assumed of you in the media you consume, in the quotes and in the memes and in the power dynamics. Because knowing is half the battle. I'm a Star Trek guy. I can't deny that. It's a part of me down to my bones. I remember Star Trek from before I remember seeing Star Trek. One of my first memories is watching Star Trek The Next Generation and saying, "Where's Kirk and Spock?" And folks, I have no prior memories of Kirk and Spock. One of my first memories is remembering Star Trek the original series. And yes, before you ask, not really liking this new Star Trek business at all. Naturally, I warmed to Star Trek The Next Generation and hit my teen years during the dark and edgy days of Deep Space Nine. So you can imagine the screeching halt my enjoyment. Keep listening, I am going somewhere with this. The screeching halt enjoyment. Voyager, Enterprise sucked. And I thought for about 10 years that maybe all Star Trek had to do was rest and it could return and be good again. So 2009 came, and the first of a new trilogy of movies came out with the original characters played by younger, sexier people. And it was a fun ride, but it wasn't Star Trek. It was an exciting series of sounds and lights played in a sequence. Oh, and they slapped on a lazy, broken Aesop at the end. Anyone remember what it was? Anyone? Does anyone remember the moral lesson of Star Trek 2009? Anyway, there was no science, no care, no discipline, no principle. The things that made Star Trek more than another Lost in Space or Land of the Giants, the qualities of the idea that made it worth rebooting in 2009 weren't there. It wasn't Star Trek. And for those next 8 years, I thought, we just had to wait it out and Star Trek would be Star Trek again. So in 2017, Star Trek Discovery came out, and it was loud and dark and shiny and had some vague lessons about it. And it certainly ended with someone talking about how if they didn't hew to their principles, they didn't have anything, but it was apropos of nothing. A series which admittedly knew the motions enough to go through them was satisfying, but it was not nurturing. Whether Discovery was Star Trek is an academic question. If Star Trek was something immutable, then regardless of my feelings, only time would tell what Discovery was. Well, time and copyright law, because it's all Star Trek. Star Trek is an intellectual property owned by CBS Television Studios. Anything made under the Star Trek license is Star Trek. Everything else is subjective. Because in a week where I've talked about streaming and nostalgia and social messages, it is important to remember that two things sustain us: other people and pornography. Well, I guess porn is sort of like other people, but let's keep it simple. Other people, porn which is other people, but in a different way, also new experiences. The human brain withers away without new experiences. We are wired to learn from birth, and when we stop, our body begins shutting down. Everything withers. All is dust, and we shall die. We cannot find something that brings us joy and cling to it forever. That's easy, but self-destructive. We are not dragons, and we cannot find gold and sit on it. The comfort of the past is a lie, and we shouldn't even sit too easily in the present. There are new things under the sun, and every sunrise brings us more of them. We should engage with new things without being gripped with fear about the time lost exploring them if they don't satisfy us. And if you can't experience and learn and waste time over new things without that fear, ask yourself why not.